Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hello and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. Hi guys, how you doing today? I'm so excited that you're here with me. I hope everybody is doing well in their life during this holiday season. Today I have a really cool guest, author Lauren Walker, with her book, The Energy to Heal, Find Lasting Freedom from Stress and Trauma Through Energy, Medicine, Yoga. And she's going to join me in just a few minutes. And I swear, this time of the year gets very stressful for a lot of us. So it's really good that we're going to be talking about this today. To all my regulars who are here with me every week, thank you so much. I love that you keep showing up for me. It means the world to me. But if you are tuning into my show for the first time, I want to say welcome. And just a little bit about me. I am an artist, I'm a photographer, and I'm also an author, and I have a book, and it's titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And in my book, there are 30 manifesting stories, along with the photographs that I took of the contributors manifesting postcards. So a manifesting postcard is kind of like a little mini vision board. I'm sure everyone who listens to the show knows about vision boards. And in my book, I include writing exercises, and it helps us get clear on what it is we want to manifest, because we're not always quite sure about what that is. And there's a toolbox full of exercises on how to manifest in the top 4, love, money, health, and career. But there's so much more in the book. So if you are interested in doing these inner work exercises and reading about people's incredible journeys of transformation, inspiration, and manifesting, you can go to your favorite bookstore and grab a copy. And I just wanted to mention that my book, Postcards to the Universe, is currently on sale at 30% off mango.biz, Mango Publishing Group, until January 31st. All the books at Mango are on sale for the holidays, so books are a great gift to give for the holidays, so grab yourself a copy and also pay attention to the book we're going to be talking about today, The Energy to Heal. I always ask, and I'm continuing to ask people to keep sending me manifesting postcards as we're wrapping up 2022 and 2023 is coming. There's some things you might want to bring into your life this year, so send me a manifesting postcard. And if you're on Facebook and you like to join public groups that are interesting, you can find my group, Postcards of Love, over there on Facebook. It's public. Each week, I like to share a little message, a little magical message, I call them, and it's an image of a postcard, a manifesting postcard, and I photograph it with an affirmation. And I like to think about affirmations every day, and I like to focus on a different one each week, and I find that it's good because they help us, it becomes new beliefs in our life, right? So this week's magical message is focus on the good. So what are some ways you can focus on the good in your life? You can look for the good in yourself and others. Definitely stay away from negative people and surround yourself with positive people. But don't disregard your feelings if you are going through something. But try not to make that your only focus. We tend to, when there's an issue or a problem, we tend to just focus on that. So try not to do that, but don't disregard how you feel. Do something fun. That's a great way to focus on the good. Watch good news networks and stay away from the news traditional news, as they tend to focus on tragedies, right, and drama. Have a gratitude journal as a daily practice. Gratitude is very powerful in helping us raise our vibrations and feel good, which is perfect for manifesting. Don't compare yourself to others. Social media can really do that to us. It can add to us feeling bad about ourselves when we compare ourselves to everybody else, right? When we think they're all doing better than us. Comparisons are not a great way to feel good. But if you do go down the comparison rabbit hole, don't forget to pay attention to those who are struggling, because maybe it'll help you appreciate what you already have. Remind yourself to live in the present moment. Don't dwell in the past or only think about the future. See what's happening in the moment and live there. Take some chances and risks. Try something new and exciting. And know that there are lessons in every trial we go through, and don't always take life so seriously. If you can find humor in the situations you find yourself in, you will always come out ahead. So let's focus on the good this week. Okay, so next week I have author Lindsay Fauntleroy and her book, In Our Element, Using the 5 Elements of Soul Medicine to Unleash Your Personal Power. And she's going to introduce readers to the 5 elements, water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, as a system for understanding the cycles and rhythms of body, mind, and soul, with a practical approach that weaves together Eastern medicine, Western psychology, and indigenous traditions, and African ancestral principles of spirituality. But that's next week. I'm excited to talk to my guest today, author Lauren Walker. So we're going to clear your energetic pathways and calm the storm of your stressful modern life with Lauren Walker's unique healing system. Perfected over years of study, Energy Medicine Yoga is a customizable program with step-by-step practices that help you recover from trauma and gain resilience. Combining yoga and energy work with the 5 elements. Interesting elements are coming up this month. This book teaches you how to respond rather than react to triggers and ultimately diminish their effect on you. The Energy to Heal helps customize your practice with dozens of illustrations, hands-on exercises, and a quiz to determine your primary and secondary element. You'll also discover a wide range of healing techniques, including chakra clearing, EFT breathing practices, yoga, nidra, and more. With this book, you can reclaim your life and become strong and vibrant again. Lauren has been a yoga and meditation teacher since 1997, and she created Energy Medicine Yoga while teaching at Norwich University. She also taught at the, I hope I say this right, Kripalu Center. Her writing has been featured in Yoga Journal, Mantra, Yoga Digest, and the New York Times, and she published 2 other books. She also developed online and in-person classes and built a community of international energy medicine yoga teachers she personally trained. So you can find out more about her if you go to her website. It's www.energymedicineyoga.net. Welcome, Lauren. Thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. So can you share a little bit about you and how you got into the kind of work you're doing today? Because it's not just about your book we're going to be talking about today. You have a whole program set up with your Energy Medicine Yoga. So can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Yeah, I would love to. So I was a traditional yoga teacher and yoga student for many years and loved yoga and loved all of the benefits that I found with it and loved the teachings and just really felt at home there. But I started to feel that the promises that yoga was offering weren't actually becoming manifest for me, and particularly trauma. I had some traumatic experiences and then kept having more traumatic experiences as life generously gives to us. And the yoga practice that I was doing was not really supporting that transformation out of that trauma state. And there's a lot of talk in the yoga world today about trauma-informed yoga, and that's sort of a new development. But that didn't really exist at this time when I was really needing some of that. And trauma-informed yoga is also still very limiting in that it just acknowledges that most of us have had traumatic experiences, but it doesn't really help us to get through and beyond those. And so I was really sort of seeking and searching what was it that was going to help me overcome these challenges that were really stopping me from thriving in my life. Was I going to need to find a new yoga teacher, a new yoga style, a practice, something totally different? What was it going to be? And it was something totally different. And my teacher showed up, Donna Eden, and really transformed my life. And I started to learn things that in traditional yoga just weren't weren't taught or were kept secret, or there's so much in the yoga world that's that is hidden and not freely given. And I started studying with Donna, and all of a sudden I understood energy and how it works in the body in such a simple way versus sort of the PhD level that I had been studying that was really great in theory. But then when you go to your mat, it's like, okay, wait, what am I supposed to do here? I learned energy, and that changed everything because energy is all there is. And so when you can have a relationship with the substrate of the universe, you're in a pretty good, powerful position, and that's exactly what happened. I started to heal. My the imprints of trauma in my brain and my body, because trauma actually lives in the body. Everything in my life started to change. You talk a lot about manifestation. I learned some incredible tools of manifestation that had also been sort of hidden and left out in the literature. And so it was a really enlightening and exciting time of creating energy medicine yoga, and it really has just taken off since then. I've written 3 books. I've got teacher training programs. We teach all over the world, online and at different retreat centers. Kripalu is actually the name of that retreat center in Massachusetts, and I'll be teaching there again next year. And I teach at Hollyhock in Canada, thankfully now that borders are open again. And so lots of exciting stuff.
Good. I'm glad you pronounced it right. Say it again. What's the energy
Kripalu.
center? Kripalu. Okay. Yeah, because I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm saying this right. But yeah, it's interesting with the energy medicine because, and like you were talking about manifestation, because a lot of people, and I hear this a lot, is, oh, I'm doing all the practices, I'm doing everything right, I'm saying the affirmations, I'm focusing, I'm visualizing, but things aren't happening. Right? Things aren't happening for me. Why is this not happening? And when I was reading your book, I'm like, well, there's probably a lot of stuff that is stuck and blocking the manifestation you want from coming because of what is stuck in our in our bodies, right? That we don't know how to heal. So you talk a lot about how to heal, what's going on in our bodies. So when you say energy, because some people may not know what we're talking about, what do you mean by energy, like how we have energy in our bodies?
Yeah, that is one of the things that kind of hangs people up at the beginning, because most of us, myself included, we learned about energy as the capacity to do work. And so that's the physics definition of energy, the capacity to do work. But then in our own lives, we use it like, I've got a ton of energy, I'm going to go do a bunch of things today. Or I've got no energy at all, it's a nap in front of the fire day, right? So that's sort of the spectrum that we talk about when we talk about energy. But what we're learning now from physics, which is so fascinating, because I study with a lot of teachers that are tying both ancient teachings and practices with modern science, and I sort of niche myself in that as well because I love those connections. And so if you study modern physics, and specifically quantum physics, you will learn that although we appear solid, we are made of energy. We are made of vibrating bits of information and light and sound at the smallest level. So if you actually go in, and how I do this in classes to sort of bring people to that understanding in that feeling sense, it's, okay, you look at your body and there's the physical structure. And then I ask you to go inside, so go under your skin, and there's the fascia that covers the whole body. And underneath the fascia, you'll find the muscles and the bones and the tendons and the ligaments. And then I'll say, go into one of the muscles or into one of the bones. And then you go into the bones, and then you go into the cellular structure. And then go into one of the cells, and you've got all of the organelles, and you've got the mitochondria and, the fluid in the cells. And then you go into one of the mitochondria, like you start to take the cell apart, and what do you get into? Then you get into an atom. Well, when you go inside an atom, you're inside mostly empty space. That is what is at the atomic level, is empty space. And when you go even deeper into the atom, you get into things like, you probably heard these words like quarks, gluons. You get to the very, very, very tiniest thing, and they're called Planck oscillating units. So the very smallest thing in the universe are these little tiny bits of vibration. That is what the entire thing is made of. Everything, you, me, the computer that you're listening to this on, your car, the trees, the buildings, everything at the very deepest level, the essential primary level, are these tiny, tiny bits of information, light or sound, and those get denser and denser and stick to each other more and more and more, and they come into densification and eventually into the physical forms that we're seeing. But we really are at the root vibration.
Yeah, I know. I love that. And when I really kind of got that for myself, that I was like, oh, wow. Like, if you really can, like, understand that and get it, and how everything vibrates at a certain, well, energy vibrates at a certain level, right? So when we want to raise our vibration, and sometimes we get stuck where we can't raise the vibration and the energy. And with trauma, which I want to talk about, we're going to be coming up to a break in a minute. You know, things get stuck in our bodies, right? So our mind could be doing all the right things, and it may be a trauma from 30 years ago that you're not even thinking about anymore, but it's somehow keeping that density and not allowing you to raise your vibration. And I know you've mentioned that people who suffer with depression, anxiety, addiction, pain, you know, all of that can be shifted by working with energy medicine yoga. So let's pause here. We're going to take our first break, and then we'll come back and we'll get more into that. So you guys stay tuned. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
The rainbow is God's promise of hope for you and me. And though the clouds hang heavy and the sun we cannot see, we know above the dark clouds that fill the stormy sky, hope's rainbow will come shining through when the clouds have drifted by. Teresa Caprio is the president and founder of Rainbow Guardian Inc., a nonprofit 501c3 serving the intellectually challenged/developmentally disabled, including autism. Teresa started the foundation in 1995 so she could help make a better life for her intellectually challenged daughter. Her dream is that the Rainbow Guardian will provide the necessary tools and education to help the public understand the special needs population, because it's often discarded in mainstream society. To find out more or make a donation in support, please go to www.rainbowguardian.org. Rainbow Guardian's special mission is to see these unique people live a happy, full life and have a future of liberty and equality.
Welcome back. So if you're just joining me today, I have author Lauren Walker with me, and we're talking about her book, The Energy to Heal: Find Lasting Freedom from Stress and Trauma Through Energy Medicine Yoga. So Lauren, before the break, we were talking a little bit about, you shared very eloquently, by the way, and easy to understand energy and how that is represented, in vibration, and how we're all just basically cells that vibrate, the whole world, and what that looks like, right? So for those who have trouble, let's say, raising their vibration and are dealing with trauma, I want to get into that a little bit more. What does that... Well, how about we start with this? What are the 9 energy systems? Because you can just touch on each one, because you talk about that in your book. And then how does that affect us if we're dealing with trauma, let's say?
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit, because the 9 energy systems might actually get us a little off track, because it can seem a little overwhelming because there's these 9 systems. And to simplify it, I want to say that you have all of these systems in your physical body, and they all work synergistically the same way. You've got all these energetic systems that work synergetically. Like you've got your pulmonary system, you've got your digestive system, you've got your endocrine system. All of these systems work together. You don't have to ever think about them. They just do what they're doing unless there's a problem. And energetically, it's very similar. Like you said, we have 9 systems. Some of them are kind of familiar probably to your listeners, things like chakras and meridians. Some of them may not be as familiar, things like the Celtic weave and radiant circuits. But they all are working undercover, I guess I would say, to keep you going energetically. And they actually exist before the physical body exists. They're sort of the blueprint of the physical body. But there's one system in particular called triple warmer that, again, if you've gotten acupuncture or you know at all about Chinese medicine, you might know triple warmer as one of the meridians. You might know it as a radiant circuit or an extraordinary vessel. But for our purposes, one of the ways we look at it is it's a part of your immune system, but it's also the part of you that is responsible for the fight or flight, freeze, and fawn response in the body. In other words, your trauma response. And this is important because of just what you said. You could be going along in your life, and then all of a sudden something triggers you from some trauma that you might have experienced 30 years ago that isn't even relevant to you right now, but all of a sudden is coming back and being part of your life again. And what we understand now from trauma and how it works in the body is just that. It's in the body. It's not just in the mind. It is actually lives in the cells of the body. And so we need to work with it from both of those areas, somatically with the physical body, to actually move the structures of trauma out of the body, the energies of trauma out of the body. And then we also work with the conscious and unconscious mind so that we release the stress response from our critical thinking pathways, and so that we remove that, what is called the limbic loop that happens in PTSD, where if you think about a trauma or a car door slams and that's your trigger, then your whole body is flooded with those same stress chemicals that were useful at the moment of what you were going through. They helped support you through that. They helped keep you alive. But now they're breaking you down. And that is what chronic disease patterns start to look like. And again, in Western medicine, we're seeing that chronic disease patterns and serious diseases like cancer, like Alzheimer's, like Parkinson's, all can be traced back to traumatic events. And so understanding that trauma is a sort of a living signature in the energetic body, makes it in a sense easier to deal with, I think, because it is a very tactile experience, and you don't necessarily have to go back to the events of the trauma. A lot of our trauma happened pre-verbal or pre-cognizant, and you don't even know what it is that is traumatizing you or what that traumatic event was, but you know from the life that you're living now that there is trauma that has led to the difficulties or challenges that you're having. And so instead of trying to, I never use raising your vibration, because the low vibrations are actually just as powerful and beneficial as the high vibrations. It's like the bass guitar or the bass, any bass instrument or the bass voice is a beautiful counterpart to that very high-pitched soprano. We want to have them both. But what we really want, what we're going for, is harmony and coherence. So more than vibration being high, you want your vibration to be coherent and in harmony. And so when you've got trauma in your fields, it actually sounds like disharmony in the fields, and it feels like disharmony in your life. You might find yourself either depressed or angry or full of grief and unable to move forward, or chronic fatigue syndrome, all of these different things that may be expressions of trauma that is still held in the body and in the energy systems of the body.
Oh, I like the way you described it, in harmony. I like that. Because one of the questions I was going to ask was what happens when we're out of balance or alignment, and you touched on some things that were, if you look at your own life and what you're going through, will let you, give you a clue of what something is out of balance, right? Do you think, I just had a thought while you were talking, do you think the rise of people, because I know so many people now who are having and dealing with autoimmune disorders or disease, do you think that has a lot to do with it also, why that's showing up in people's lives? Like the body is the body like turning on itself? I mean, what is an autoimmune thing, and how does that have to do with that, what we're talking about today with the energy medicine?
Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring that up, because autoimmune diseases and autoimmune issues are also under that same umbrella of that same energy system, triple warmer. And what happens with an autoimmune disease, which is very similar to an allergy, it's just sort of an allergy run amok, like the very extreme. Yeah. So one of the things that your immune system does is identify you, what is self, what is me, what makes me Lauren, and other, what is not me. And so that's one of the main things your immune system does. So when it's you, it's like, okay, these are my cells, this is my blood, this is what my DNA, and then something enters into the body, and my immune system goes and says, that's not Lauren. What is that? Is that a danger? What kind of a response do we need to mount to that? Do we need the full army? Do we just need one platoon? Like, what do we need to eradicate this and remove this other? And cancer is a perfect example, because every person on the planet has cancer cells in their body nearly every day. A healthy immune system identifies those cancer cells, deletes them, we go on, no problem. If you are compromised in some way, that's when things like dis-ease patterns, cancers, viruses, all of these things enter into the body, and then they grab a foothold because the immune system isn't strong enough to identify them and release them. Now, this same system, triple warmer, this part of this immune system response, can also be overactive. And what happens when it's overactive is it stops being able to identify what is you and what is other, and it starts to attack you. And that is what an allergy is. There's nothing wrong with a peanut. There's no reason that you should die from eating a peanut. There's no reason that you should get stuffy nose every time the leaves put out their pollen. Right. And there's no reason why your body should identify your own body as a threat and start to attack it. But that is what an autoimmune disease is. So when that system of triple warmer is overwhelmed with trauma, with hypervigilance, with issues that haven't been resolved that start to stack up over time, it gets overwhelmed. It goes on mad alert, and it turns on the main thing that it's supposed to do, which is triple warmer is meant to protect you and keep you alive. That is its mandate. And that can get derailed through trauma is one of the main things that can derail this ability for you to identify what is you and what is not you. And that happens psychologically as well. If you've had trauma, you sort of lose your sense of self. Who am I? What do I want in the world? What are my needs? What are my desires? What are my dreams? We lose that when we are traumatized to a large degree. It obviously depends, what sort of trauma, how old you were when the trauma happened. But that is one of the responses of trauma is we lose our sense of self. We lose our boundary field. We lose our own ability to discern who am I from others. That one of those F's, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that fawning is when we try to appease a person that might be actually traumatizing us as a way to get away from that trauma. It's kind of like a bit of a Stockholm syndrome, like we start to kind of think that the person that's hurting us, we want to try to soft kid glove them so they don't hurt us. I guess it's not quite Stockholm syndrome, but it's this weird interaction with other people that we start to lose that sense of self and boundary. And so one of the first things to reclaim yourself after trauma is to reestablish your boundaries, reestablish your own sense of self, and to come into a calm centeredness with that system of triple warmer so that it starts to protect you.
That's so interesting. So the triple warmer that you're talking about, how is that different from our chakra system? Because I know a lot of people are familiar with the chakras. People have talked about that for a long time. So a lot of people understand what that is. So how is that different from our chakras?
Yeah, well, actually, I would say a lot of people don't really understand what chakras are because, again, many of the things that we've learned in sort of in modern yoga is not really based in the ancient scriptures and then in the truth of actually energetically what's happening there. So chakra literally means wheel. That's what the word translates as. And they are wheels of energy in the body. And they're actually energy wheels or vortices that arise at the crossing of very powerful lines of energy that travel through the body. And the chakras, from my tradition, the energy medicine yoga tradition, the chakras are like the hard drive of your energy system. So they contain everything that's ever happened to you, past, present, future. And past lives, if you believe in past lives, your past lives are also imprinted in the chakras. And the kind of information that's imprinted in each of the chakras is related to which particular chakra that you're looking at. And so if you know the chakras, you sort of know some of those vague outlines of what they are. So if you've had a trauma, it will absolutely be held in the chakra. Say you got a heartbreak, okay? And so that would be held in the fourth chakra, the heart chakra. And anahata it's called. And so that would be the level in the physical body where the trauma is held in one of, here's the piece that most people don't know, in one of the 7 layers of the chakra, that trauma will be held. Now, triple warmer, so that's one of the energy systems of the body, is the chakra system. Triple warmer is 3 of the 9 systems. It is all 3 of them. It is a meridian, it is a radiant circuit, and it is its own system in part of this immune response and this trauma response that we've been talking about. And this idea of habits, which is also held with triple warmer. And our traumas and our responses to them can become habituated and then become patterns that we really have a difficult time breaking out of. So your trauma will be held in a chakra, but you need to get triple warmer on your side to be able to release that trauma from the chakra, from the energy fields of the body, so that you can really be free of the charge of that trauma.
So fascinating. So interesting what you're talking about. And now, is that when we talk about, when you get in the book about the 5 elements and what the elements are and how we work with them, which will be the stepping stone that helps us with our healing. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the 5 elements is one of the 9 systems as well. And it's sort of like a taxonomy of the universe. Everything in the world, everything in the universe falls into one of these 5 categories. As well, everything in your physical body, all of your thoughts and your emotions, the seasons of your life, the time passages that you go through, each one of those is also held in one of these elements. So the beauty is, it's this massive idea of taxonomy, but it's very simple because everything is only one of 5 things. And what happens when we go through an experience, let me add in one of the most powerful pieces, is that your emotions are also part of this. And that is one of the things that's not really worked with that much in traditional yoga classes, is the emotional body. And we are emotional beings. We learn through our emotions. They tell us everything. And so these 5 elements have these emotional signatures to them as well. And so any event that you go through, but we're talking right now about trauma, so any trauma event that you go through or stress that you go through will have a little bit of each one of these in there. And if you've got something that you haven't been able to let go of, if you've got a traumatic experience that you can't quite, you keep coming back to it. What if I had done that? What did that mean? One of those things that you just keep chewing on, and why do I still think about that all the time, and how come I can't let it go and move on? We've all had those conversations. The reason you can't move on yet is because you haven't understood the information that experience was trying to give to you. And one of those 5 elements, 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 of them, depending the severity of the experience, is going to be complicit in giving you that information. And so
let's pause right here. I'm sorry, because I just saw that we're at the break, because I want to talk about what they are so people can understand. And I know we're going to get into it. So let's pause here. We'll be back in just a few. Stay tuned.
Awesome.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back. Okay, so Lauren, let's just jump right in. We're talking about the 5E elements. Do you want to mention what they are for those who are listening?
Yeah,
So they kind
absolutely.
of understand. Go ahead.
And you mentioned them at the top of the hour with Lindsay's book that you're speaking with her next week. She's
I know.
lovely. I've read her book. It's wonderful. And they're the same elements because they're both from Chinese medicine. And those elements will be different if you look at different systems. But in Chinese medicine, it's water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. And if you want to look at the emotions, the blanket or the overriding emotion, out of balance and then in balance, for water, it's fear moving into courage. For wood, it's anger moving into right action or assertive action. For fire, it's anxiety or panic moving into joy and inspiration. For earth, it's worry moving into self-love. And for metal, it's grief moving into faith and the ability to let go. And so if you've had a traumatic experience, and I'll just say this, every experience you have a little bit of that in there. So every experience you have, there's a little fear, there's a little anger, there's a little panic or anxiety, there's a little worry, there's a little grief. And if you've had a traumatic experience, those might not be so little. It might be quite a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of grief. And in order for you to release this trauma completely, you need to understand what that fear is still trying to tell you, and how can you overcome and release that fear and move into courage. And so each chapter of the book explains in more detail what the element is, the different parts of the body that it covers. It gives you a story about somebody archetypally that has used the power of that element to help them in their lives, because that's the other thing too. These aren't pointing out your deficits. These are your superhero powers. And so understanding these powers and how to access them is a huge part of your healing. To be able to know yourself and your own primary element, because like astrology, you also have a primary element, to know what that is. So how you lead in the world. Do you lead with anger? Do you lead with grief? Do you lead with fear? That gives you information about how things affect you. And then all of these practices, each chapter gives you practices for strengthening the parts of those elements that might not be as strong right now, to bring what I call lighting up that point of the star, that five-pointed star, those elements that I just mentioned. In any situation, you might have had one of those points of those stars, like a fuse blown in your house, and I want to help you fix that fuse so that you can light up again. And once you can light up all 5 of those fuses, all 5 of the points of the star, you can release that trauma. It just is released. It's just gone. You don't think about it anymore. It doesn't present. It's not in your tissues. It's not in your brain. It becomes now in your chakras, back to that again, just part of your story. I was born, I got a puppy when I was 7, like whatever. It's just a piece of your story. It's no longer than you start, when you're telling someone a story now that you haven't metabolized a trauma story, you'll start crying, you might start shaking, you can't even get through it. That means it's still in you, alive. If you can tell someone your trauma story, I was in a car accident and I broke my leg and whatever, if you can just say it like that, then you know that you are free of the trauma imprint of it.
Yeah, and I love that you have, she has a quiz in her book called the 5 Elements Quiz, and it really helps you narrow down where you fall by the statements in the quiz, and there's a number system. You have to have the book to see what the quiz is, but it's really good. I really enjoyed the quiz.
Nice.
Okay, so continuing that, and you mentioned the practices in your book. So let's talk a little bit about these practices. So we go through the elements, we find the elements, we maybe have one that sort of is, like you said, taking the forefront over some of the others. We know this. Now we want to get into the practices to help us release whatever it is, whether it's a trauma or just a stress. So let's talk a little bit about your practices. So what do you recommend? Or I'll just let you go. What are your practices? And maybe there's one you could tell us about or something that people can maybe start incorporating.
Yeah, I'll tell you one in a minute here that's my absolute go-to. But just to kind of give you a little outline of the practices. So when you're wanting to reclaim yourself, your life from stress, from trauma, which, by the way, act in the body in nearly identical ways. So you don't have to be traumatized. You could just have a super stressful life, and these issues will still, these negative outcomes can still happen with you and for you. And so the first thing that you want to do is repair the boundary field, like secure the perimeter, like literally secure the perimeter. And that's your aura, which is one of the energy systems of the body. So that is a field that surrounds the body that is very protective. And when you've had a trauma, that field can get shattered or distorted or detached. So you want to secure the perimeter. You want to find your breath again. And this is all in the very opening chapters of the book. You want to find your breath again, because we lose our breath when we're stressed out and when we're traumatized. We do that, and we hold our breath and we don't breathe. So we want to reclaim our breath, and I show you some very easy practices to do that. Then we want to work with our energy. And so right up in the very beginning of the book, I offer you what's called the Energy Medicine Yoga Wake Up, which is like a 2-minute routine that you start to do just to start to get the baseline of, it's like you're just walking up and down the street, right? You're just starting to do your practice. You're not doing anything crazy. You're not running a marathon. You're just like, okay, I'm going to learn how to walk. You're going to learn how to use your energy. So that very, very basic practice. And then each of the weeks, or each of the elements breaks down what that element is. So what is the water element? What does it cover in the body? Is this what I need? Then there's journaling prompts. Is this the practice I need to do right now for my issue that I'm working on? And so each of the elements has very specific techniques to use, and I give you a template EM yoga practice to kind of insert each of those specific practices in weekly. That may sound confusing, but when you read the book, it's very, very clear. There's the template practice, like your base. You're getting a rice bowl, there's your base, and then each week, what is the things that you're going to add on? Are you going to add on water this week or wood this week? What are the pieces that you're going to add on to that rice bowl? So those are the practices. They're laid out. They're really simple. They're really accessible. They're very, very powerful. You will start to feel changes and transformations right away. And I'm going to give you an example right now. This is my absolute number one. I tell this to strangers on the street and in the subway, just wherever I am. If I see someone who's stressed out, or someone's talking to me and they're telling me a story and they're starting to cry and they're starting to sort of go into that stress response, you're going to put one hand over your forehead like you're taking your temperature. And you're just going to hold it there. That's it. It's so simple. You're going to forget it, or you're going to think, oh, no, that's it. I'm telling you, it is one of the most powerful things you can do to reprogram your nervous system, to bring yourself out of fight or flight response, to keep yourself very present when going through a stressful situation. It is unbelievable. I thought, too, when I first learned, I'm like, really? I'm putting my hand on my forehead. Okay, whatever, everybody. It is the most transformational thing. And I'm going to share one other little one that's also just as powerful. So hand to the forehead or hand to the bottom of the throat. There's a little notch there. It's called the sternal notch in between the points of the collarbone. You can put 1 or 2 or 3 fingers in that hollow, or just rest your hand there sort of at the base of your neck. It does a similar thing. So you can use them both together, hand on the forehead, hand on the neck, if things are very stressful. If you're in like a business meeting and it might not look good for you to have your hand on your forehead, you could just be kind of playing with the collar of your shirt or a charm on your bracelet, hand at the base of the throat. Keep yourself from going into stress response. Keep yourself from going into the PTSD loop. Keep yourself grounded and centered so that you can think creatively and intelligently. It is a game changer.
Wow. So how long should we keep our hand there? A few minutes? Should we be doing any like deep breathing while we're doing it, or just
so there's a few different ways you can do it. If you've gotten your breath, always breathing in the nose and either out the nose or out the mouth, but always in the nose. And then, if it's like a little thing, like someone cuts me off in traffic or my computer is doing something crazy and I don't know how a computer works and I'm like, I'll put my hand to my forehead. I'll take a few breaths. If I'm telling a story, I might have my hand there the whole time. If I'm trying to reprogram a PTSD response, I'm going to hold my hand there while I think of whatever the issue is that is causing me to get triggered. I'm going to just keep holding my hand there while I'm triggered, while I'm crying, while I'm shaking. I'll give you a really potent example from my own life. About 5 weeks ago, I fell down a flight of stairs, and I immediately, blunt force trauma, went into total trauma response.
Sure.
And I had my husband come over and hold my head, just like I said to you, because I had to hold other parts of my body because I was in really bad shape. He held my head, one hand on his forehead, one hand behind my head, and allowed me to just wail and cry and scream. And while that was all going on, he was making sure that the trauma was being released. And it absolutely calmed me down and let me figure out the next steps that I needed to do and move forward. But that was an hour and a half solid that he held my forehead. So whatever you're going through, you're going to sort of know. If you're going through it, you keep your hand there while you're going through it. Like I'm glued to the forehead. If I'm going through something hardcore or glued to that throat point, I am there for the whole time. If I'm doing a speech in front of a lot of people and I'm nervous, I might have my fingers in my throat there playing with the charm the whole time.
I'll never forget this. I will definitely not forget this. And this is wonderful for parents with their children who are going through something, right? That you can
and you
do
can say it to someone else. If you see someone else that's struggling, say, "Hey, it's okay.
I will.
Put your hand on your forehead and then keep talking to me." And people are like, "What?" And then they do it and they stop crying and they're kind of like, "What just happened? I was like having a meltdown and now I'm not, and I don't know what I'm doing." It's powerful.
Oh my God, no, I won't forget it. In fact, a conversation I'm having later with somebody who's going through something is the first thing I'm going to tell them to do.
Nice.
Oh my God. And you know what I really loved, because I believe this, that you touched on it in the book, was the power of words. And how we don't realize how powerful words are. I talk about this a lot, and I think about this a lot, and you talk about, you say making a vow. So can you give us an example of a vow that we may be making that we don't really want to be making, and we don't even realize that's what we're doing?
Yeah, I'm late all the time.
Yep.
There it is. There's your vow. Yes, you are late all the time, and you will be late today too.
Yes.
Things like that we say all the time. I noticed that I caught myself out. I was teaching a class, and people were shouting words out, and I was writing them all on the board, and I was like, I'm a horrible speller. And I said, did you guys all catch that? I just confirmed to myself that I'm a horrible speller, and I just want to show that is a vow. I just made it to myself again. So those kind of things, words that you say to yourself in your own head, those vows, those are the worst. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I'm all the things that we say to ourselves all the time. You would never say that to your best friend. You would never say that. But we are so mean to ourselves. And a lot of the time, those aren't our words. They're not even our voices. And so part of that trauma excavation is to eradicate those voices. They might be your mother or your grandmother or someone that was jealous of you. You don't even know where they're from, but you've internalized them. And so releasing those and replacing them with vows that are things that you actually do want to manifest. And there's some, in that chapter is some tools to help you find that. Because again, if you've been through trauma, you might not even know your own desires anymore. You don't know what you even want for breakfast,
Yeah, no, I love that you called it a vow, because when you say it like that, people can really get that. Because when you're making a vow, people think of marriage, you're making a commitment, you're saying that this is, so that's very powerful, saying it like that. And then you have a practice in the book, and I see if I pronounce this right, sankalpa? Sankalpa? Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a Sankalpa in her book that tells you how to change that vow to a vow that you want to be making, and it's really quite simple. And I really like that. So I wanted to touch on that. When I had you on the air, because I believe it's very powerful, the words that we use, and we only have like a couple of minutes. So is there something that you want to touch on before we have to wrap up that we didn't get to cover?
What I like to say to everybody is that this work is really easy. And you know that now. You got the hand to the forehead. But I encourage you to dive in and try it, because it's easy and it's powerful and it's transformational. And if you're listening to the show right now, you need this. It's time. It's time for you to be free. It's time for all of us to be free. And that's sort of why I'm really just so passionate. We can heal our trauma. You don't have to drag that around with you. It's really, it's something that you can really be free yourself from. And so I hope that you'll take this to heart and grab a copy of the book. And I guess I got to say this because we're live on the air now. We just opened our online store after years of not being able to do it. We sell classes online and that kind of product, but we finally are selling hard goods. So if you want a copy of your book, personally signed by me, go to emyogastore.com. We've got T-shirts and Abhyanga oils and all kinds of beautiful things to support your journey. But mostly we've got the book, and I'll sign it for you and help you on your way.
Thank you so much, Lauren. This is Lauren Walker. So check her out, The Energy to Heal. Okay, everybody, I am wishing you, thank you again for listening to Postcards. I'm wishing you a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. See you next week. Peace.